Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Fiorini, VP of Integrated Solutions here at Adams in Tampa, Florida. And today we have with us Adam Willea.
Yes, sir. Adam Willea with FANUC Robotics, based out of Bradenton. But it's a neat dynamic because it's Adam with FANUC, FANUC with Adams. I think we run into that a lot, right?
Yeah.
They think it's my company because they see Adams. I'm like, yeah, no, I don't have the yacht parked outside. But
Doug doesn't either yet. Yeah, we're working on it. We got to sell some robots.
Yeah. But between us, what do we have? We got to have over 30 years of experience between us, right?
Yeah, 15 years in the industry for me, 10 of which have been with Adams. Yep. And you've been with FANUC for 10.
Yep. I've been with FANUC for 10 and total in the industry, probably pushing 18 for me. I programmed my first LR mate as a intern with actually JR Automation, West Michigan.
Yep.
Programmed my first robot. It's weird to say, I'm 37 now. I was 18 when I did it. So over 18 years ago.
We're getting old.
It feels like I'm not old enough to say something's 18 years ago. But
I feel you. And I look in the mirror and I see all the gray coming in. And luckily the wife's okay with it.
Yeah, there you go, man. Yeah, I love that.
But who would have thought we'd be here today? Adam and I, we were competing in the marketplace for a long time. But Adams and Adam, FANUC, recently partnered in the past, 6 months or so?
Yeah, end of 24.
Yeah, to help push their product line throughout the Southeast and Caribbean. And, we're doing a lot of work now with the CRX product line and trying to take on light integration projects.
Yeah.
We got the CRX5 right here. Yeah. So far, so good.
Yeah, it's been great. I definitely think it was something that was long overdue. Here we are. We live not even an hour apart, right? And we've both been hustling in Florida. Yeah. It's been interesting because I feel like Florida had always been on this automation lag. Right.
Yes.
Now remember, I'm a Midwesterner, right? I'm from Michigan. You're
Massachusetts,
right?
Yeah.
So in the Rust Belt up north, it's been automation for
forever.
40 years, 50 years since there was automation, right? Mm-hmm. And not knocking Florida, but it's a different world. Right?
Oh yeah, going back to the early days of my career, I worked for a global Japanese company, and we would get literature for the new products, and it would be all automotive.
Yes.
And you're, as a Florida guy, you're sitting there going like, oh, I don't have any of that.
Yeah, we don't make cars.
So I'm going to the people making everything else being like, well, this is how we do it on a tire or a door gap,
right?
Or something like that, and
trying to make it relatable.
Yeah. But the whole industry, and then FANUC flies that flag at the Detroit airport right outside the parking garage. But that's where the world really is.
FANUC was born because of automotive, dude. Mm-hmm. For those who have been a veteran in the industry, it was GMF.
Right.
It was General Motors FANUC.
Yeah, I forget that sometimes.
There's a picture of Dr. Inaba shaking the hand of, I forget who at GM, but like our president and the General Motors president, hey, you're going to make robots. We're going to make cars and trucks.
Yeah.
And that's our business. And actually, fun fact, I'll throw a stat at the audience here is when FANUC started, it was 100% automotive. That was it, 100%. Now our automotive is just over, it's like 35% of the business.
That's crazy.
So that paradigm, that shift of going from the only thing you do is vehicles to we do medical and defense and food and bev and distribution and life sciences, and we do all these things, and we also do automotive.
That's a testament to FANUC as a brand and a company, and a big reason that we decided to partner with you guys is that there are very few, I would say no companies out there that you can say, hey, standardize on our robot language, standardize on our robot brand. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, no matter what application you have within the facility, you can use a FANUC robot. So that could be a collaborative application, a SCARA application, a Delta application, explosion proof, clean room. Yeah. So for me, we're first and foremost salespeople, right? We have to meet with customers and try to advise them on the best thing to use in their plant for their application. And honestly, there's even an additional layer there of having the talent of people that can deploy these robots. So it's far easier to find somebody that has that FANUC experience, or it's also a lot more easy to get trained on FANUC versus some other brands. So, you can go into customers and I don't have to fight the brand game anymore. I can kind of go in there and say, hey, standardize on FANUC. we can get you trained, or there's a lot of people out in the marketplace that have this training, and you can, future-proof sort of your operation, because anything that comes up in the future, nobody ever got fired for putting FANUC in a plant.
That's
and
right.
They have a robot for any application that you can come across.
Dude, I love that. And, I'll say that it's the right tool for the right job, right? Like, I can pound a nail with a crescent wrench. I'd rather use the hammer.
Yeah.
Right. And so the benefit, the luxury I have working at FANUC, and now the luxury Adams has partnered with FANUC, is we have every robot for every job. Do you need a high payload palletizer? We go up to 700 kilogram for a 4-axis
I've seen
palletizer.
it carrying a Corvette.
We can carry a Corvette with the M2000, right? Wave that around, all the way down to a little bitty tabletop Scara, 3 kilo, or Delta robots, like you said, explosion proof, Cobot, welding, painting. And so I think that's been a big game changer for, like, I love how you say future proof. It's today you might need a Cobot, you're machine tending. But what about tomorrow when you're palletizing, or you're sandblasting, or doing a gel coat, or whatever you might be doing? There's a lot of brands out there that focus just on, say, Scaras, or just on Cobots, or just on welding, or whatever. And to be a jack of all trades, that's a benefit that we bring, right?
And we used to compete with you guys, and prior to you having Scaras and Cobots, that was an area that it was FANUC didn't play in that area. So there was a gap in the portfolio that's been addressed in the past 10 years. But prior to that, there was still a space for everyone to play that FANUC couldn't touch.
Dude, and that goes back to Florida, living here in the Sunshine State. Yep. If I didn't have Scaras and Cobots, I don't know what else I'd sell. I mean, I would say 80-20 rule. Here. I would say 80% is Scaras and Cobots in Florida, because, again, we're not heavy automotive.
No.
We tend to be machine tending, high speed, pick and place, medical device, clean room,
electronic components,
a lot of electronics. And so that's,
especially now you go down the Caribbean too.
That's right. That's right.
And
shout out to Puerto Rico, Dominican. Wepa, mi amigos.
But we have a lot of medical, pharmaceutical down that way, and it's all light payload and high speeds, and they want to do assembly or whatever. But then the Cobots play a great game in the whole machine tending applications and palletizing, where I tell people all the time, like, no matter what you make, at some point it's going to go into a box and on a pallet, more likely than not. Yep. And that's a really ergonomically not friendly application to be doing. So, Cobot's a great fit for that. The speeds aren't crazy, the precision isn't crazy, and the payloads can be up to 30 kg now. Yep. So why have a human doing that all day, every day? It's not the most labor friendly.
As a business owner, it takes one hurt back worker comp claim, and you could have bought like 2 robots.
That's a really good point, Adam. And that is an area that I wanted you guys to spend a little bit of time on. When we're talking about automation, specifically from the owner's point of view, and they're starting to think about it, one term that I keep seeing in the market is robotic process automation. Now, I know with the rise of AI and automation in general, a lot of that is geared towards software. But when we're thinking about manufacturing automation, how should an owner go about thinking about that?
Dude, 100%. Like, a huge charter of what Jeff and I bring to the table is these decades of experience of what's a good job and what's a bad job. And a business owner, they have visibility as to where their bottlenecks are, but sometimes, let's be real, what they want to automate, it isn't necessarily the best thing. Like, I know they have a problem. I try to shoot really honest. I spent a lot of my life, the first 11 years of my professional career were as an engineer. And I remember sitting on the factory floor going, what sales guy said yes to this, right? Sales guys are like, the answer is yes. Now, what's the question? Yeah. And so I think what's important for the high level, the business owners that are talking to automation providers is this a good fit for a robot? Robots have capabilities, but they have limitations. And I think, Jeff, you were saying to me earlier that we've walked plants together where they're walking us up to a problem area, and we passed 10 good opportunities along the way,
exactly.
right?
They want to go to the biggest pain points oftentimes, which I understand.
Of course.
I would too.
That's where you gravitate.
But you're bringing us in to consult on where's a good place to get started. And oftentimes, back to the Florida point, we're in Florida, so maybe they're not the most automated plant in the U.S.
Right.
Our job, Adam and I, and everybody else really for that matter, is to have to meet a customer where they are. Yeah. So is this your first automation project, or are you the most automated plant in Florida? Well, and anything in between there, we work with you. But really referring to the people that are just getting started, you go in there and like, hey, here's my biggest pain point. More often than not, it's either a quality issue or a labor issue or something to that effect when I get called in. And I don't like to start there unless it is a really easy application. Because oftentimes
it just works that way. Yeah, right. Oh, your pain point is the thing we have a solution for.
Yeah, and it's rare though. And to your point, like what sales guy sold this, it's like, well, we only work in a really small area of a really small world, and all you have is your name and reputation. And there's companies out there that have sold applications they shouldn't have that ruins the name of just automation in general. So like you've been in plants before where you go, or they're just like, oh, we're anti-robot now.
Yeah.
And like, what?
They'll say robots aren't for us.
Yeah.
And so just had a really bad
it's like, no, you went through a bad experience, and I feel bad. I see them, and I do feel bad, and I also feel bad because it ruins the opportunity for the good ones out there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what I really try to do is go in there and find an easy win at an entry level automation customer. Find an easy win. And, this happens a lot, but let's go in, let's knock this out. Let's get a win. Let's get positive momentum and working with that engineer to really get him, trained up and able to take ownership. And then, all right. And then let's start taking bigger bites as we go. Dude, but let's 100%. Not start trying to eat the whole elephant.
100%. And again, being a Florida transplant, I'm not a flow grown here. I've been here 8 years or so, but what's interesting is how many plants have absolutely zero automation, and you have to get them over that fear. There's that hump of fear.
First one's the hardest. So why would I start with the hardest?
So don't start with the hardest. Yes, let's get a little win, right?
Yeah.
Let's go with a low risk, high reward, something that's cost effective, something that we've done 100 times. We can support you through it, get you some training, get you comfortable, get your operators comfortable. Mm-hmm. There's always that fear too. People see, robot representatives walking the floor and you start getting those side eyes, and everything. Dude, I have been in robotics again, 18 years, almost never. I'll say truthfully, one time I put in a robot where they walked out the workers, but thousands and thousands of robot deployments that I've seen over the last couple decades. We don't replace workers, we displace workers. So now instead of having, say, 2 people at your palletizing line sitting there waiting to get a box and hurt their wrist and hurt their back and lifts and ergonomics, okay, you park 1 robot there. Well, now you have 2 employees that can do something else.
Right. And oftentimes you can also train those employees to make more money tending the robots
100%.
Or becoming the robot expert in that plant because there isn't one right now.
Yeah.
And you don't want to call us every time you have a robot issue. It's ideal that you have someone that can address it right then and there. So let's skill that person up, and then maybe they're tending 10 robots or something like that, and their career is better off for it.
Dude, labor's hard to find. You don't want to walk them out the door. Just have the people doing people jobs and the robot doing robot jobs. If it's pick it up, set it down, you don't need to be paying someone. The other one that bothers me, and I know it bothers you, is when you walk into a machine shop and you see a machine that has that perfect cycle time where it's like a 3-minute cycle, right? So the human loads the part. They don't have enough time to go be productive elsewhere.
Right.
But they're just sitting there for 3 minutes.
To the machine.
So they pull out their cell phone.
Yeah.
Their Instagram,
fantasy
Twitter,
football.
fantasy football. Yeah. Hard Rock Bet, right? And I know
maybe
I
have a sponsorship now.
I'm not sponsored, and I do not have a gambling problem unless you ask my wife. Then I have a major gambling problem. But they do. They put in a part, and then they sit there for 3 minutes, and then they take it out, and they put in a part, and they sit there. And that capacity utilization, again, going back to what Nate was asking about a business owner, it would drive me nuts knowing that I'm paying somebody $20, $25, $30 an hour, and I'm only getting 1 minute of work every 3 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a 30% utilization of this. I'm paying him to be on his phone.
So Adam, to that point, I've just got a quick question because there's a couple terms that I hear a lot when it comes to automation. One is scaling operations, right? The next one is reducing costs, but then also improving quality. So if we were to look at those three, like, how do you think that fits into the owner's approach when they're thinking about this? I mean, you just gave the example from a labor standpoint, being more efficient with labor, but how do you think about scale, reducing costs, but then also improving quality, which I feel like sometimes gets left off, but obviously is a key point too.
Dude,
I'll take one of those real quick.
Please,
The first Cobot deployment we ever did, turnkey, was at a customer here in Florida that was making... well, I'll leave that out. They were making a part that was going
making a widget
in and out of a machine, right?
Okay.
And they kept having some quality issues, and so we automated the process. And one of the things we did is we put a force torque sensor on the robot, and we were putting a part into a chuck, but applying a certain force before the chuck closed, and then we were getting out of there. And 99% of that issue went away, and what it came down to was operators put the parts in differently and closed the chuck at different times, and ours was consistently going back to the same spot, applying that force. And so that issue we found out was caused by just a guy going like this, hitting the button and just moving too fast, right? But it's the repeatability that varies from operator to operator that can throw a bunch of quality issues out there, and it gets really hard to figure out, where is that coming from? Is that coming from the operator, the machine? And then are you trying to do gauge R&Rs to figure out where that's coming from?
Yep. I want to answer Nate's other two, but I need to talk on that. If you have a highly manual process, one of the ones that I've seen is in spray or sanding, something that's really labor intensive. The quality of parts that are produced on a Monday afternoon versus a Friday afternoon. You can tell in the lots of like, hey, these were built early in the week, these were built late in the week, because there's fatigue. There's morning quality, there's afternoon quality. There's your arms, your shoulders, your back, things fatigue. End of the week, you're mentally checked out. You're like, all right, I'm out of here.
It's
right?
Drinking time.
It's drinking time, baby.
Right.
It's fishing time. And so the thing with the human touch is there will always be a variability in quality. And so when you're looking, especially in medical or high precision machining, scrap. Look at you, if you're a business owner, again, look at the cost that you may be losing in either rework or scrap. It's unbelievable.
I remember when the Cobots came out, they were like, they're not as repeatable as traditional robots, and you had to educate the customer base on what they were. But also you had to go, oh, well, my traditional robot might be repeatable to say 20 micron, and this is repeatable to 100 micron at the time. Like, oh my God. And I'd be like, well, what do you think Joe's doing with a cup of coffee in the morning? You think he's that repeatable? Like, then no way.
There's no way.
So yeah, I mean, we run into that too. And then the cost reduction aspect comes back down to
onshoring, baby. Let's go.
That and the ROI and back to the availability of labor. I mean, if we get called in, it's 99% of the time, I'd say we have labor issues and we're trying to reduce costs. But again, there's so many job openings for that individual manufacturer that you're not replacing a human. You are taking the dull, dirty, dangerous tasks.
3Ds, my friend.
And we're putting a robot there to make a human go do something more productive. And typically it's going to pay them more and be more valuable to the company, higher level job security. And then, there's usually an ROI there because the cost of labor is rising. The cost of automation hasn't gone down, but it hasn't gone up at the same rate.
And the final note that Nate said was scalability. I've heard it several times where at a CFO or CEO level, they're saying my sales guys are pulling their hair out because we're turning down business. The factory is at capacity. They've got as many people as they can find. They're running 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, and they literally cannot gain any more throughput. So now they're like, we got to turn down work. who doesn't want more work flowing through
Yeah.
the business, right? Well, that's where the automation comes in. Better speed, less downtime. Sometimes a ghost shift, right? You might have 2 10s, being worked, or maybe 2 8s. Well, the beautiful thing about the robot or cobot, you hit the green button at 4:59 p.m. You go home. When you come back the next day, there's 100 new parts made.
Well, right. And how many people do you know that want to go work the second or overnight shift, second or third shift?
Anymore.
And yeah, you can get paid a little bit more, but there's not a lot of people that want to do that.
Yeah.
And so run lights out, and that whole shift costs you, the cost of running the electricity to all that machine.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a good point.
Yeah.
The operating expense of a robot, near nothing. It's electricity, right? The OpEx is not it. It's all CapEx. It's a one-time purchase. The thing pays for itself. We love to target. I would argue we try to target about a 1-year ROI. Sometimes it's quicker. Sometimes it's 18 months. But after a year of that capital expenditure, these things are printing money. Then you go do another one.
We've thrown around ROI a couple times, and I just want to make sure that we level set how at least somebody should think about that. Maybe some actual examples of how you would work with a customer to calculate it. The one that's easiest for me to wrap my head around is when you go to run lights out. You're only working 12 hours and then you work 24 hours. That's a pretty easy one. But for a standard project, like how are you working with the owner or with the project lead to talk about ROI so that they feel comfortable, that they can understand it, and they can go communicate it to their leadership team?
Awesome question, man. I'll start and then I'll pass it to you. So the first thing we always start with is, what are your current operating expenses of full burden labor rate? Right? Not everyone's using a temp, so let's ignore that for now. You have a full-time employee.
Even if you are,
even if you are, you're still
higher
paying
than
the
what
agency.
you're paying that person. Right.
But let's say you've got a full burden, and when I say full burden, we're talking insurance, workers' comp, hourly, maybe even like a 401k or IRA, whatever. Right? So that operator is not a $15 an hour operator. It's $45, $50, $60 an hour, right? So a industry rule of thumb, and you can correct me if I'm talking crazy, but an industry rule of thumb is most unskilled operators are about $50,000 a year, right? Ish. I've seen lower, I've seen higher, but let's just do that
nowadays. Yeah.
So you're sitting here saying, okay, how many people do you have sitting at that line? Let's go back to palletizers. This person sits at a line, a box comes 1 a minute or 2 a minute. So now they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs for 30 seconds, move a box, twiddle their thumbs for 30 seconds, move a box. And you're paying $50,000 a year in perpetuity. And a lot of times they can't do 8 hours. They got to do 4. And then you swap them out with someone else. So now you got 2 people palletizing. Yep. That's $100,000 a year to move boxes. And
that's if they show up every day.
And that's if they show up every day.
And you don't have to retrain them and rehire and all that stuff.
So now once you've identified what is it costing me today, where is my return on investment? Okay, well, what we're trying to do is move your OpEx to CapEx, or at least, like I say, displace those workers, have them do something of more value add. And that's where I'll pass it to, again, I'm the robot guy, but the solution provider. Yep. Okay, now we're spending $100,000 a year to stack boxes. How does that turn into a cobot palletizer?
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of times our customers are trying to do this on their own. And we try to get involved in that process, but I think a lot of companies have their process as to how they submit for CapEx or something to that effect. But Automate has a really good ROI calculator on their website. The A3 ROI calculator. So we'll go in there. Sometimes I'll point them there because it's easier that it's not like I'm not using this as a sales tactic. Like most customers are going to tell me they want to hit a 2-year ROI.
Oh yeah.
So I'm not using this for me. I'm saying, all right, here's the calculator. Here's the link. You put in the numbers, but that'll help you determine if this is a good project or not too, because I don't want to waste my time either. And I don't want to waste their time. No. And, I want success here too. And there are so many people trying to do projects and with the Salesforce size that we have, there's many projects to go after. It's more from the integrator side. Which ones do we both want to go after?
Yes.
And that's going to get us a win, because you can't do 100 projects a year as an integrator.
Right.
You have to get really selective which ones fit your capabilities and your availability and your lead times and all that. So it comes down to like, I'd rather them take a look at that link independently and say,
yes,
here's a tool, use it.
Yeah.
Let me know if it makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'll factor in a bunch of things. And quality is one of the issues, scrap rates and the efficiency of the machine. And
instantly having another shift, right? In my example, John and Jane Doe that are costing you $50K each, they're working. I say they're working 8 hours a day or 10 hours a day, but that's not the morning break, the afternoon break, the lunch break,
absolutely,
the ramp up and ramp down.
Days off,
vacation, 6 days, PTO, and
no call, no show.
And then, but with a robot, not only did you just solve that shift, like Nate just said, you can now you're running through the night, as long as you keep the robot fed. That's what I always tell people. A robot will work 24/7. You got to keep it fed. Like if we're machine tending, you need to give me a whole magazine of blanks and raw stock,
bar feeder, or whatever that's going to be look like.
An outfeed. Am I dumping in a wash bin or where am I putting it? As long as you keep them fed, they'll work.
Yeah. What I like about that A3 tool as well is when you get into that calculator, you feed all the numbers in, but then it spits out like a 10-year track. And it'll be like, it even factors in like year 8, you had to replace the robot again.
Oh, wow.
Or something like that. But the ROI happens in year 2. And you really see the money coming back in your pocket. And then you're like, okay, well, this thing isn't bulletproof for eternity. Like you're going to need to maintain it a little bit. And they factor that in too.
Nice.
But you can still look at a 10-year, what does this investment look like for me for the next 10 years and 10 years from now? So I really like that, because we're all trying to figure out like, where do we spend money this year to benefit the company long-term? And I've met with engineers where they're, my goal is to offset $2 million this year or something to that effect. And so how do you show that? How do you effectively show that? Well, that tool is a really good one to use.
Yep, 100%. And that also, what's cool about, and you touched on this earlier too, is once you get over that hump and get the first one in, the redeployment of subsequent systems, especially when the client takes some ownership, man. How good does it feel when a client's like, no, I want to learn the language. I want to learn the maintenance. I want to learn touch-ups.
I want to get trained.
I want to get the training. Cool. We as the experts will help you hold your hand through this first one. And then if you want to take that and just copy and paste it 10 more times, bully for you. Like let's rock and roll. Right. And, I've seen that firsthand where if you get that first win and you get them trained, all of a sudden they just become your best customer, because they're like, oh yeah, I need another one and I'm going to do this. I'm like, do you need me to look at it? They're like, no, I got it.
Right.
I got it. I'm like,
and that's why it doesn't
bro.
make sense. And that's why it doesn't make sense to take on the wrong projects. Because if you do, and we work again in a very small region, in a very small industry in this world. And if I get a bad name at that account, especially on the Adams side, like I'm a distributor too. So, and a distributor first, I would say. So I'm a distributor that does some light integration. So if I'm going to take on a project that you're not going to buy automation from me again, but it also might jeopardize the products that we already sell you. Why would I take that on? It's a risk I don't want to take.
People talk.
People talk.
And like you start like I keep talking about machine tending because that's a huge sale point for me. Every machine shop in Florida knows every other machine shop in Florida. They're all competitors and they all talk. They all whisper. They all, hey, who'd you use for this? What workpiece holding? How's your experience with this robot guy? Whatever. And if you go in and just cheap yourself out for, that robot will do that just to hurry up and get a commission check. Right. You've ruined your relationship with him. But that's going to spread like a virus to everybody. Right. It's word of mouth. But conversely, I take pride in really helping people as much as I can over and above and beyond. They'll be like, I've had recommendations come to me from other customers where they're like, Adam put in a bunch of hours, and Adams had a total solution, made it so I didn't have to shop and do 10 different POs from 10 different. There's one phone call to make. We're central in the state. You and I can get pretty much anywhere, depending on traffic. We can get anywhere in Florida in a handful of hours. We used to be able to. Yeah, I went from Bradenton to Tampa this morning, and it was supposed to be 45 minutes. It took an hour 45.
It wasn't I-4 though. So
it wasn't I-4. I'll put the snowbirds don't move here.
Yeah,
you can even visit though we and then leave. Snowbird.
But we're grandfathered in.
The Florida rule, right? We're all Yankees, but once we get here, that's when they need to shut the door
right behind us.
Yeah. Hey, now that I'm here, no one else. But no, that's what I'm saying is local support, right? If I can go above and beyond, I answer my phone, answer my text, drive to your facility. They're like, wow, this guy didn't just drop a robot and run, ring the doorbell, see you, bye. No, we're here to help you get comfortable so that you don't have to bug us. We don't want to be bugged.
Well, no,
right?
at the end of the day, independent. God forbid, but if you and I were to leave our companies, our name doesn't leave us. So your reputation's still there.
That's right.
I can go sell for so on and so forth. But you screwed me on that project 5 years ago. It doesn't matter where you were. So that's the type of thing.
And if you think Florida's small, Puerto Rico, 100 by 35. It's 100 by 35.
You drive around that whole island in a day.
Yep. 100 by 35. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody went to school with everybody, and everybody's worked at every other shop. And if you screw one company, you'll never sell on that island again. It's relationship based. And I think that's why we've had success, FANUC on the islands, is because they can actually trust us. They're like, oh yeah, direct flight from Tampa to San Juan. You can be here tomorrow, and that's why do.
There's a lot of pressure on us because I can either make you look good or I can make you look really bad. And that's the goal. But I think what we are good at is, and this is on the Adams side, the FANUC is obviously a great product, but what we apply to the product that makes it a positive experience for customers is, first of all, we now have one of these that we can bring out to a customer that's never seen a Cobot and demo it on the table, just like we're going to do later today. We also are going to start offering training classes in Tampa under our roof with our engineers, so that forces us to become the experts. So the traditional sense of hey, here's a line card, buy this from me when you need it, that went out the window a long time ago in the distribution world. So, we now have a team of 8 engineers that can help you out with sizing, can help you out with doing cycle time studies, can do training, kitting solutions together. So you want to deploy it yourself. All right, well, what are you trying to pick up? And let's select the end effector and let's get you a pedestal, or let's cage it off and give you safety, or whatever we need to do there. Lloyds will even do risk assessments with us.
That's important. People glance over that way too much. They think, it's a Cobot, it's inherently safe. Well, it's not safe if it's tending a 50-ton press that rips your arm off, right? You need to still have your whereabouts for a risk assessment, right? The oldest joke in the world is, you can't put a knife at the end of a Cobot. Well, I mean, and now people have really leaned into that. We've actually had Cobots carving jack-o'-lanterns to be haha, it's holding a knife. but seriously, again, if I'm running a business and I'm like, buy a Cobot. They're fenceless. They're safe. They're great. The robot's safe. It's nice and smooth and round and no pinch points and contact stop. That's great. But what about the tool? What about what you're carrying? Right. I've probably told this story to too many people too many times. I'm going to start sound like an old man here, but we're getting there. But when Cobots first made a big break 12 years ago, over a decade ago, I was doing a deployment. I was still an engineer, and it was a simple machine tending. We would put in bar stock, and then a machine would cut it up into smaller pieces. So the robot would load the full bit and then take the little bits and stack them out. And as I was working, the Cobot was literally stopped. It was not moving. I had it pick up a part and it was sitting there. And I went to duck under it to go look at something and jog. and that part had a sharp, fresh cut edge on aluminum, and it cut through my shirt, through my skin, and I just started bleeding profusely.
Really?
And I'm like, dude, nothing was moving. Like, I wasn't jogging, I wasn't in auto, I wasn't anything. And this robot gashed me open. Well, the robot, I did it.
Yeah.
But I'm like,
did you intentionally do that because you guys didn't have Cobots at the time?
It would have been a good. Ow! It hit me. Start whacking my face. This robot won't stop. I did not plan it, but I did have to go and report it. Like, hey guys, I know you bought a Cobot, and I know you think this is safe.
Mm-hmm.
You need guarding, and everyone's like, no, we don't need guarding. I'm like, yeah, you do. And so that's the thing. People got to do the risk assessments. LOITSA, right? That's a good one. Obviously, we can help them. We're not going to rubber stamp it, but we can help guide them and tell them what others have and haven't done. That's definitely a big part of making sure you have a successful deployment is looking at all that ancillary stuff, man.
So that's a good point with the example that you gave where the robot cut you, because, a lot of people don't realize that the onus is on the manufacturer to get that risk assessment done. It's not on the robot manufacturer, the OEM or the integrator. It is the onus of the manufacturer to get that done. So one way that we help customers with that is we do represent LOITSA for our safety products and services. LOITSA is a global German brand, but global, and they actually stock parts now, and they just moved their US HQ to like just outside of Atlanta.
Oh, wow.
So they stock a ton of parts there. Great for us in the Southeast. But they provide all the safety hardware that you see in the marketplace, but they have a full product breadth. They have the interlocks, of course, but then they have the safety light curtains in any size or style that you want, with all the functions that you may want with muting and blanking and so on and so forth. They do have the safety radar now, and they have the safety scanners. Safety radar, a lot of people don't know about it, but it's really good for dirty environments where a scanner might get all that dust and
I saw
debris.
one for the first time on your floor. It's really cool.
It's really
I didn't know it
cool.
existed.
Yeah, so it can see through all that stuff. The biggest thing with scanners is in a dirty environment, you might get particles on the screen, and then if you don't wipe it, it's going to obstruct the safety system.
I've had it even worse because the scanners for most robots, I might even talk about what robots need and don't need them, but I'll tell you an anecdote first is I got a call that a FANUC kept going down. It keeps e-stopping. We're getting false e-stops. Like, all right, well, we got to go check it out. And these are hard to debug because it's so random. What it was is it was a big industrial palletizer that had area scanners so that the robot knew whether to be building on pallet A or pallet B based on who's moving what. Well, what was happening was when the robot was on pallet A and they were bringing in a blank pallet for pallet B, well, the blank pallet you just do by hand. You don't need a fork truck. You just and the guys would walk over with that, and when they would throw it down and go quack, all this dust and debris would come up and hit the curtain of A, and it would stop the robot. So the robot's running, palletizing, things are going great, and it stops, E-stop. And they're like, why did E-stop? We're over on B. It's because literally a plume of dust. And so
that's a great radar application.
That's radar. Radar would solve that in 2 seconds.
Great in palletizing cells. LOITSA is actually going to be rolling out, and I might be talking a little soon on this, but I know it's coming out soon, so I'll say it. But probably the smallest scanner I've ever seen. And they had it at TechFest, so they had like a little sneak preview of it. But the price point's going to be right too. So it's really good for like our Cobot platform or something to that effect. Where you need to get it into a tight space. But the last thing there is that, back to the onus being on the manufacturer to get that done. LOITSA is one of the few that does offer the safety services too. So someone deploys a machine into your facility, and you, the manufacturer, want to have someone can come in and do a
third party.
Exactly. With the paperwork and all that stuff, and say, hey, I got a risk assessment done. They will do that service. They do it through Adams. We basically pass that through to enable our manufacturer customers and partners to have that as a service, because it's a big deal. But they offer that as a service, and a lot of people don't know that. And so it's really good to be able to do that. And they will also offer that on a machine that already exists within your facility. So, Adams may have nothing to do with what's in there, but you want to have somebody come in and, hey, you know what? I'm not sure if this is actually up to snuff on this machine, they'll come in and do that as well.
And it can be, I mean, truthfully, you know, we're talking about this, it's just so natural, but like it can be overwhelming for someone new to understand, when do I use a light curtain versus a scanner? When do I do fencing versus Cobot? And kind of coming full circle to the breadth of product lineup with FANUC, like with these area scanners, you have it's a proximity reading, right? You have far, close, and danger.
Yeah.
Well, we have people put area scanners on Cobots to unlock high speed mode.
Right.
Okay. So what you can do, and this is you know, application specific, but you can put an area scanner on this Cobot, and if nobody's around it, it'll double its speed. It'll literally go twice as fast and run those cycles. And then as you're walking up to it, it'll slow down. And then if you get close enough, it just knows to anticipate, hey, I might bump you.
Right.
But that exact same technology, that same sensor on a yellow industrial robot is full speed when there's no one around, slow speed as you get close, e-stop when you get by it. Right. So as soon as you get within harm's way, it will actually stop that robot.
And so it's key to note that those are zones that are configurable. So if your robot can reach across the room, it's not the same hardware as this one that can reach here, right?
Yes.
So those zones are configurable, and they typically can see like 30 meters out or something crazy. So they can see really far away, start to slow down long before someone gets close, and e-stop way before you're actually going to, you know, be within reach of the robot and the tool. And keep people safe. And so that's always the conversation that I've got to have with people. You know, they'll call me up and say, hey, I need a Cobot. I'm like, well, do you, or do you need a robot with a scanner? Like, what do we need to do? And for me, when I get asked that question, you know, FANUC has over 250 models, 250. All right. I know companies that have 5. Crazy.
Okay. We have 250, more than 250. So how do we narrow that down? There's 3 criteria that I normally like push people into. It's speed, reach, payload. That I can really target your robot by knowing how fast it needs to run, what your throughput is, the reach, how high are we stacking, how far are we moving, and what do we have to carry. So we've already said in this conversation that the maximum Cobot, 30 kilo. Well, if you got to lift more than 30 kilo, and that's including the tool, you're out. Yeah. Now it's time to go to an industrial robot with some kind of guarding or scanners, right? So payload is huge. Speed.
And I don't know if we'll see Cobots go beyond that payload, because if you drop a part that makes, or that weighs more than 30 kg.
Now the part's the problem.
The part is the problem. So you're really not going to be, I don't think, I mean, I could be wrong, but it'll be on camera and we'll be able to go back to it if I am. But if I don't think you're going to see Cobots roll out with greater than 30 kg payloads.
It becomes, so if I have to get pedantic, the FANUC CR35 can be tuned to 50 kg. So I have to say that the green robot can lift 50 kg.
Oh, the green guy.
The green one, not these. And the big difference, we won't dive into it in this, but the big difference is, can you steer it by hand? Yeah. You know, these, I can grab the robot and move it. The green one, you can't. Right. That one got up to 50, and we had to do that because there was a competitor brand out there that said they could do 50. And we're looking at the RIA going, are you sure you can do that? But let's just say, for argument's sake, that 50 is the current maximum, whatever, 30. But if it was 50, going beyond that, it's the hazard. It's a drop hazard. But I've heard it said before. I'm going to give a shout out to one of my veteran sales guys, Jim. Jim used to say, guarding is not just to keep people out. It's to keep product in. If you're whipping around and you lose control of product, you have a vacuum failure, a gripper failure, or sometimes you have a box and the box rips open and stuff goes flying. I'd rather have that stuff go flying and hit a metal fence or a Lexan than go out into the aisleway, right? So fences aren't just keeping people out, it's keeping product in. And so that's why payload is a huge, So payload's a huge thing, but speed too. I'll have someone call me up. Hey, I need a Cobot. All right, cool. Yeah, let's talk. They're like, yeah, we need to pick and place these widgets at a rate of 60 a minute. You know, one per second. You know, boom, boom. I got to play. Okay, well, that can be done, but not with these. Even in high speed mode, these can't do it. So then we have to say, okay, a Scara can do that. A Delta, the spider robots, they can do that. But that's, now we're talking safety, we're talking payload limitations, we're talking things like that. And so that's why I say, if you look at this entire mountain, this range of robots, there's always the right tool for the right job. And for me, it normally comes down to speed, reach, and payload. Do I need to reach from, here to here? And I'm just picking and placing, a lot of medical things and little assemblies. We do a lot in the hydraulics space where it's like, I need to put a O-ring on a valve. I only need to move 2 inches.
Right.
So I don't need this is too big.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
But they want to do it insanely fast. You need a Scara.
Yeah. And I'm of the school of thought where I wouldn't even probably want to use a Cobot in high speed mode, because you've kind of, unless it's an application that makes sense for it, because you've kind of defeated the purpose. Like, let's just cage it in and use an LR mate. Or something to that effect. Yeah.
Save money, run faster, lift more.
Right. Exactly. It's never space constraints, maybe, but there's few instances where I'd want to go that route. It's just, why am I feel like I'm undersizing that application at that point.
Yep. And actually, that I'll segue that one layer deeper. If Adam with FANUC with Adams, but Adam with FANUC, I pride myself in being the expert in the robot technology. My world begins there and ends there. Right. I don't get into the tooling, the conveyance, the safety, the guarding, the 80/20, the PLC. My world is right here. Right. And so, I am a very targeted still engineer. I are an engineer and I can't turn it off. That's where my value add is, but that's where that support with the Adams partnership. That's why I'm so that's why we're in this room right now, is I'm so stoked that, I can only provide a robot. Adams can
0% of applications can function without
everything else. 0%. This is a beautiful boat anchor until you have a solutions, a full integrator, right? And I think it's important for people to realize that they're not paying for that extra layer of support, right? And to phrase that better, whatever this robot costs is what they pay, whether they're working through Adams or working through FANUC. The difference is the level of support you're getting. You're getting this little love triangle of support of customer, solution provider, and manufacturer. And we all have the training. We all have the spare parts. We support Adams. We support Adams customers. It's this whole, pocket. And I think that's important for people to realize how much talent is on the bench to make them not fail. Right. You know,
exactly.
If that makes sense. So
for sure. And I think that's why Adams has kind of positioned themselves the way we have is, we wanted to make sure that we weren't the line card people. We're able to do light integration. We're able to do turnkey cells. We're able to train you. We're able to, I didn't mention before, but to have somebody come on site and do on-site training as you're doing a deployment. So
like a quick startup.
Exactly. We've called it Jumpstart in the past, but it's really on-site training. And so let's say back to meeting customers where they are. Let's say there's a customer that, I can't afford a full turnkey, but I really need this robot. I want to buy the robot, a pedestal, and a gripper. And can you just come on site for a day or two and hold my hand at a lesser rate? And so we'll charge a daily rate to have somebody go do that and help them out because, we believe that we want to help U.S. manufacturing. It's right in our mission statement. And so we want to make sure we can address those issues. But I also think there's a really good opportunity for us to play well in the ASI market that exists in Florida today as well. We are first and foremost a sales team. And I think a lot of the ASIs are first and foremost essentially an engineering firm or an engineering group. And we are going to find more opportunities than we want to take on. Yeah, I think there's anyone who's in this space will tell you that if you think you can do everything, you're going to get in trouble very quickly and you're going to lose money quick. We want to make sure that we get really good at, we certainly want to be good at the Cobot applications, and there's going to be some light integration. We certainly don't want to become the largest OEM in the state of Florida. We never will be, and that's not a goal at all. So I think being able to find projects where we can bring them to other, really good resources.
Literally lead share with an engineering firm.
I don't want to take on a project that's going to put me in a bad spot with a customer. Yeah. So if there's an application that doesn't make sense for Adams, I can bring that back to you or to one of your other FANUC integrators in the network that are better at those applications than we are.
Dude, and I say this all the time, like a big part of my job, because I live and die with the robot. Mm-hmm. The rest of my job is to be a professional matchmaker. Yeah. Okay. I've got ASIs that just eat, sleep, and breathe packaging. Mm-hmm. Do you need horizontal form, fill, seal? Do you need picking, packing, boxing, palletizing? Okay, great. Mm-hmm. But then I've got integrators that live in assemblies and testing and data acquisition. Mm-hmm. I've got integrators that are vision experts. They know all the cognex mm-hmm. and FANUC. Yeah. They know how to marry it all in and when to use what. And that's the thing is I feel like so many integrators have these perfect little niches of where they have. Like you said, if you think you can do everything, you're already set up for failure. Yeah. You need to get very, very good at 2 or 3 things and just kill it in that space. Mm-hmm. And that's where Adams, who has a crazy army of feet on the ground, mm-hmm. right? And FANUC, who we harvest leads, we need to share and distribute that and work amongst ourselves for the benefit of the customer. Yeah. Like it's literally for the customer.
Adams is going to find more projects they don't want to take on than they do want to take on.
Oh man, say that again. Man. That's good. That's true.
Who can we work with to bring those opportunities to where we all still get a win? You know? So,
because let's face it,
we are not trying to be everybody.
Well, and that you and I, we walk everything from a little Bill's machine shop that's like in a barn down a dirt road. Sorry, Nate. I'm actually jealous of barns down dirt roads. That's my life dream. So I'm not knocking on Bill or Nate, but like a barn down a dirt road with a couple CNCs, mm-hmm. we see that and we see their budget and we see their needs. But then we walk into these Fortune 500 companies, mm-hmm. That have a 500,000 square foot. And trust me, the budgets and the needs and the processes are different. Very different. And I know Adam sees that like, hey, there might be a $250,000 project that we can absorb, but that $5 million project, you can't touch it. That's not the space, right?
No, and I'd love to bring that to people within the network and get the customer a win, you a win, and everybody wins that way.
100%, man. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So now that you guys have talked about the breadth of the network and gave some different examples of types of specialization across the network, can you guys spend a little bit of time and just go through some actual examples, what that looked like for the customer?
Absolutely. You got a favorite you want to jump in?
I'm going to defer to you on that one first.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've got a couple good. I like Nate's question. Like, give me a real world example, and without naming names, right? But
that's the hard part.
rather than say, "Oh, pretend you have a widget," I can actually speak to some deployments, and I'll speak to one that hits home because the customer became a very good friend of mine. Mm-hmm. So, Company X. No, I can't even say X because you'll think I'm friends with Elon. And I'm not, but that'd be cool. So Company A. So Company A is a machine shop. And they are dealing with everything from bolt carrier groups to rifling to stocks to all different kinds of cool gun stuff. I'm a gun guy. I love guns. So automatically I'm already drooling.
Usually a good application for machine tending.
Such a great application, right? Because you're literally starting high runs. And not to say that high mix, low volume is bad. That's what Cobots shine. Right. But for this example, these are high runs. These are set it and forget it. Mm-hmm. So this guy's like, hey, look, the owner of Company A says, look, I'm considering robots, kind of tiptoeing around it. Mm-hmm. Had to get over that fear. Will you spend some time with me and just like coach me through this and teach me? Okay, yes, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So I came in, and me personally, like this is just Adam, just me, like went to his shop. He gets a robot. He gets his gripper. I'm showing him some mathematical offsets where if you got 50 parts on the table, you don't teach 50 positions. You teach the 3 corners, 1, 2, 3. Yeah. He's like, oh, wow, that's so much easier. Mm-hmm. And so we got to working and showed them how the IOs work and remote start and how it can interface with the M codes of the machine. And we didn't have auto door, so we used the robot to open and shut the door.
Yeah. It's always fun.
That's fun. That's fun. But we did have auto fixturing. And he ended up building these really cool racks. So because, again, you got to keep the robot fed. Mm-hmm. We started with a table and realized we were only running a couple hours. Mm-hmm. He's like, dude, I need like a 12, 18, 20 hour run. So we built shelves. Okay. And so we got this thing running so well and so much. He ended up buying 6 or 7 more robots after that were all copy and paste. And once his shop had 7 robots on 7 machines, mm-hmm. all running, he got to the point where he could work a 4-day week, Monday through Thursday, and take Fridays off. And I would, don't tell my boss, I would duck out of work, 3:00 on a Friday, put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and we'd go race dirt bikes together.
That's awesome.
So all of a sudden, he's a dirt bike guy. I'm a dirt bike guy. And so what happened is this solution literally changed his life. Yeah, and I don't want to be like poetic or prophetic, but I'm serious as a heart attack.
Yeah.
He went from working 60 hours a week mm-hmm. to working 40 hours a week, 4 days. That's huge. And he can have that robot run full production all day Friday, 20 hours unattended mm-hmm. while we're out ripping up the trails, riding dirt bikes, having the time of our life, mm-hmm. going out grabbing lunch. Life is good. And then he'll come back Saturday and he's got more bulk carrier groups. Mm-hmm. And that's a very, it hit home because he's the owner. He's got the sweat equity in this thing, the blood, mm-hmm. sent to, it's his baby. Mm-hmm. Now he's more profitable, more quality control, more throughput, mm-hmm. and more spare time to do his hobbies. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great.
Great example. I love that example because it literally it wasn't just money. I know this whole podcast we've been talking about ROIs and money and returns. It's lifestyle. Mm-hmm. I mean, it literally changes your life when you can have one of these things doing the work for you.
Sure. Yeah. They don't call out.
Yeah. They don't call out, man.
Yeah. We had that reminded me of a similar one that we deployed in South Florida last year. Might have been 2 years ago now. Same deal. The customer would get in a lot of parts at once, and then it would take they'd have to find, first of all, labor to go deal with this for a period of time. So it was parts would come over in a large Gaylord and they needed it was machine tending application, loading the parts into a fixture, same old deal as usual. And this one was on a lathe.
Oh, we love lathes because already it's an automated holding. Exactly. It's concentric.
The ease of deployment. You don't have to worry with vices and the auto fixturing and all that stuff. So part went in on a lathe and we deployed that turnkey. And in fact, one of the things that they, I'm not going to say complained about, but they were like, wow, the robot got it done so fast. Yeah. That now I got to figure out something else for the robot to do.
For a robot to do. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So what ended up happening was they had some parts come back after a period of time and they were like, you know what, now we want to add machine vision to this. So every time the part comes out, let's 100% inspect. So the part would come out of the machine and then we'd put it in a fixture and we had a Cognex camera looking down the center for flash and debris and things like that. And it was telling us if it was side A or side B type of thing as well. And so that system grew into that. And then the customer came back to us and, again, this is the customer that's never put a robot in their shop before. Yeah. We got that first win. And now it's like, okay, I've seen that benefit. Now let's go look at X, Y, and Z. So then even to this day, they're looking at sanding applications and welding applications. And
they get excited, right? They get excited.
Yeah.
And, I was talking to you before we even started rolling. We've seen so many things go good and bad that we have this barometer of what's a good project. And it's really hard to impart 15, 18 years of knowledge into a customer in one 20-minute afternoon. Hi, my name's Adam. I'm with FANUC. And I have to hurry up and tell you everything about robot. It's really hard. It's I need to educate you. We need to have some meetings. We need to have some demos. We need to give you some real life examples. And part of it is you just need to trust the experts. Yeah. You literally just talk to the experts. Yeah. Because if you try and figure it out on yourself, you're going to go through the same fiery learning curves that we already went through, learn
absolutely.
from what we've
Yeah,
lived.
we're certainly not saying we know everything, but when you start to look at it over a period of time, at the first sales call you ever went on, you're like, wow, I'm a dumbass.
Yep.
And then, for 15 years, you've been probably meeting with 10 customers a week. That adds up.
It adds
over
up.
a long period of time. And we've seen things, people manufacturing all different things. And I tell people sometimes, like, my favorite part of the job is that, like, I like solving problems. So I'll dive in and help you solve the problem, but then I leave, and so I'm kind of just putting out fires, but I like to jump in, and that's my problem for the time being with you, but it's a short-term problem. Then I'm on to solving the next one and the next one. And in doing that, you see so many different industries and so many different manufacturing processes. So over that 15 years, you just, you start to realize, like, wow, I have seen a lot. So
it's not that we're smarter. We've just seen more.
Just seen a lot. Yeah. And I'm a visual person, but that helps me. And now I can come in and consult.
Yeah.
So I may not have seen exactly your manufacturing process. You're the expert at that.
Yeah.
You are the expert at the process and that product,
100%.
But I can help you automate it.
That's so true, man.
Yeah.
I've said that same sentence. Mm-hmm. You are the expert of your product. Mm-hmm. That's your baby. Mm-hmm. I'm the expert of motion.
Yeah. How do I apply
it? Yeah. I have a tool. How do we make this tool work for your process?
Right. And one more thing I'm going to ask you to talk about is, so one of the big things when I came over from having represented other robot brands and then, now working with FANUC is, and this was asked of me when I was working on projects in the past, but I think one of the most impressive things that FANUC has is that ZDT software at such a low cost per robot. So I'd like to have you talk about that.
That's something that gets glanced over too much because of industry buzzwords, right? Mm-hmm. I think my pet peeve in this world is AI. Everyone thinks that everything's AI. It's like, no, that's just a Cognex camera. It's just looking at stuff. It's not AI.
We do have AI Cognex cameras.
We do have AI. We do Cognex, but not everything is AI.
You see it all the time.
And so what ZDT is, it lives in the IoT, right? The IoT, the Industrial Internet of Things. And everyone wants to talk about IoT like it's a buzzword, and it kind of kills the coolness of what FANUC has done with it. So FANUC has had this insane wealth of data from our robots over 45 years. We have what we call accelerated life testing labs, where we destroy our robots, figure out what failed, beef that up, and then go and destroy it again, and then beef the next thing up, and the next thing, and the next thing. And so what that has done over the years is it has given us incredible data metrics of current, heat, load, duty, excessive e-stops, crash monitoring, all these different things. Mm-hmm. Okay. With that big data.
And those are only things you get with that many years of experience.
We 2 years ago, we hit our 1 millionth robot, which is like 5x any other brand. 1 million robots out, 1 million FANUC robots out in the wild.
Right.
So ZDT specifically is zero downtime. And this takes IoT to the next level. It takes it to a predictive maintenance. So IoT is great for, hey, what's my uptime? What's my downtime? What's my part count? What's it doing in real time? ZDT is the robot self-diagnosing and saying, you're going to have a problem 3 months from now. And you're like, wait, what? It's like, it pings your phone, pings your email, sends you an alert and says, my joint 3 is getting really hot. You might want to think about greasing me before I fail. And so the whole point of this is you didn't know there was a robot problem. You being the business owner.
Yeah.
It's running. It's humming. You look at it. Yep. Life is good. Robot's running. You leave. You come back and it's down. Well, what the heck? Well, with ZDT, that robot can tell you something's happening that is irregular. We'll look at trend lines in data, like a big one's excessive e-stops. Operators in maintenance love to stop a robot with an e-stop. Bam! And then go in the cell.
Right.
Dude, that's not how you do it. Like when you're driving your car down the road, you don't just stand on the brakes, right?
Yeah.
And so what happens is our robots will say, I had 172 e-stops today. I'm pretty sure you didn't have 172 emergencies.
Yeah.
So what's going on? And it'll put that data out and let managers or maintenance or whoever plant managers know, hey, I see a problem. It's getting worse. Fix it before you have a problem. We can even do that with the cameras. What's really awesome is like if your camera is taking pictures of a part to either QC it or locate it or whatever. Let's say it's supposed to take 100 milliseconds. Boom, got it. Okay. Well, all of a sudden the robot says, taking 150 milliseconds. Well, now it's taking 200 milliseconds, 250 milliseconds. You and I as humans, we just look, yep, robot's taking pictures. Yep, we can't, imperceivable. But the robot sees a trend line that something's changing. It knows that there's dust buildup on that lens. And it's taken longer to compute the part because the lens needs a wiping. And so ZDT is the robot letting you know there's a problem literally before there's a problem. And it's $300 per robot per year.
That's what I was going to say.
It's $1 a day, dude. Not even.
It is condition monitoring on a robot for hundreds of dollars a year, which is so low.
Yeah.
For considering that, and back to the name, zero downtime. Downtime costs a lot of money. Dude. 1 minute of downtime costs more than the robot ZDT license for a year. So again, back to, when I came over and I saw that that's what it was, and I also anticipated the price would be way higher. I was like, why would you ever sell a robot without it? ZDT? Like, it just makes too much sense. And especially if you're in auto where any second of downtime costs so much money. But that's a feature that I really liked. It's probably the favorite feature I've seen since coming over as far as like software options go.
And what's cool is every single FANUC robot made after, I got to remember exactly what year, like something after 2018 or 2020, somewhere in there, every single FANUC robot has it. It's just a matter of whether or not you turn it on and subscribe. And so what's cool is, old Bill's machine shop, who only had one robot, he's like, I don't really see the value in ZDT. I'm with the robot every day. Okay, but once you put in 6, 7, 8 of those things, now it matters. Now you turn that switch on and he can pull up his phone from anywhere in the world and see how the robots are
But
going.
it could also alert you and me. Like if I integrated
100%.
it, right? So it could tell Integrator, it could tell you, it could tell the customer, all of us being like, hey, you're starting to have issues. So if he's not paying attention, I could call him and go, hey, are you seeing this alert on your thing? And we can get ahead of it.
All that is a permission checkbox. So the customer has the permission settings. It's your robot, it's your data. But if you turn it on that FANUC can see and Adams can see, now everyone's babysitting your robot remotely. And the other cool thing is it is only outbound. There's all the data's outbound. So you can't get into the robot and change code or anything like that. You can't hack the robot. All the IT guys watching this, all their red flags and whoop, 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 no, firewall. No. It's a secured cloud-based outbound only connection that's just giving you the information. If you do want to program a robot remotely, we can do that. But that's not ZDT. ZDT is just, how's the robot doing and how will it be doing and when are you due for any kind of maintenance?
Another software tool that's come up a lot since we came on board was the Pallet 3, which has been, because we're in the Cobot world and we have we're quoting CRX palletizers. One of the things that was very impressive, and, I didn't know that you guys even had, but I was going through the portal and the training videos and I saw the Pallet 3. I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, well, I guess it makes sense that they've been palletizing for so long. But I was aware of like a few other platforms out there that existed, but how thorough that Pallet 3 tool is and how it addresses every single thing that can and will come up in palletizing is great.
It has evolved so greatly. So like, again, with FANUC being around, on the robotics side, 45 years, we have a pretty good feel for what you're going to do with a robot, right? Not too many people are groundbreaking. I'm going to do this crazy life-changing thing. You're going to palletize or you're going to pick and place. Okay. So what FANUC has done is we have pre-built all these, we call them all these tools. So there's handling tool, weld tool, paint tool, pick tool, pallet tool.
You sent me like 100 pages of that.
It goes on forever. It goes on forever, right? Dispense tool. I could go on forever. But what it is when FANUC has seen what people are doing with robots, they're like, we can get you a lot closer to the end solution by pre-canning code in a software package that gets you like 80% of the way there.
Sure.
And so like, for example, when I talk about Pick tool, that's the conveyor tracking. So you've got a moving target, it's on the fly. The robot needs to locate it, match the speed, pick it, and then get it out of there. That's hard to write by yourself. But with pick tool, dude, you set up a couple boundaries, you set up a trigger sensor, and you're done in an afternoon, right? And so with the Pallet tool platform, which is now on Rev 3, so Pallet tool 3, Pallet 3, when you have that software baked into a robot, so robot starts as a blank slate, but if you know you're palletizing, you slap Pallet tool 3 on there on the tablet interface. It's a true WYSIWYG drag and drop, right? Where you build your unit loads, your pallet patterns, your box sizes, alternating layers, labels out, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, it's like
on a drag and drop.
You can take your customer's pallet sheet, and just build it
on there and say upload.
Right.
And now that robot knows exactly how to build and stack that entire pallet. And then once you have that recipe saved, well, that's recipe 1. How many more SKUs you want?
Right.
You want 10 more, 20 more, 100 more?
Right.
Drag and drop.
But it's like, what's your pallet height? What does each layer look like? What's your box size, length, width, height, whatever. Build that box. In every different layer might be a little bit different, or they might just stack on top of each other. But what side do you want to approach from? Based on how you're building that
short
layer.
side.
To what height? Are there slip sheets in between?
We can even do multi-pick. You can have it where you want it, where the in-feed buffer builds up 2, 3, 4 boxes, and I'm going to pick 4 at a time or pick 2 at a time.
And we've done it in where Giovanni's done it in
our RoboGuide,
where we're simulating it for the customer at the time too. Because what I found in a lot of experience is the engineers know what it's going to do, but the decision maker sometimes is not an engineer.
Yes,
and they like to see that
seeing
robot.
Is believing, man.
Seeing is believing. They like to see that robot building that pallet for them.
Yep.
And then it's almost like an emotional response to, oh, wow, the robot can do that for me.
So, it helps us too, as the engineers, like you can dial in your layout. Maybe we got to raise the robot a little or scooch the conveyor, or scooch the pallet. It'll give you cycle time data, positional optimization data, payload and overcurrent. You can even, like, what's cool about RoboGuide, you can even set ambient temperature.
Oh,
so
really?
in Florida, it's crazy. Not everyone has AC.
Yeah.
Right. So you go, oh man, in summer, you walk 2 of these shops and you're just gushing sweat and you're like, all right, here we go. Yeah. But you can test that up front and tell the robot, you're going to be in a 100-degree environment. Is that okay?
Right.
And our RoboGuide will tell you, okay, well, exothermic reaction, as long as you stay below 113-degree F, you're okay, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, that big software package, like I say, we know if you're going to be welding, you buy the weld package. And now your robot, you teach a start and an end, and it'll do the weaving and the overlapping. You're not programming a weave. It's doing it, handling tool is the core one, where it's just like pick and place, O-rings, packages, assemblies, things like that. But there's a tool for just about everything out there.
Yeah. Yeah. And I remember you sent me that document. You said for some light reading if you need a hard time sleeping or something like that. But I mean, I haven't even gone through all of those yet. The limits are endless with FANUC. Thank you for coming and being with us today. Adams and FANUC. We're really excited to be partners, and very excited for what the future holds for both of our organizations. And it's always good working with you,
dude. It's a pleasure, man. I'm super stoked to be partnered. I couldn't have said it any better. This is great, and it's going to help a lot of Floridians and folks in the Caribbean and across the whole Southeast. But
absolutely
awesome, man.